fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. We're somewhere in the episode 204, 5, 6, 7 range. I don't even know. Time is flying by. Can't thank you guys enough for all the love, all the support. It has been really, really cool to see this podcast continue to grow. And I get a lot of different requests, for guests and really for topics in general. And one that keeps coming up over and over again is the constant struggle of having to go out there and catch inshore slams in a new spot. And that could be that you just moved. Maybe you moved from somewhere like Ohio or somewhere that might have not that much salt water, any at all. And all of a sudden now you find yourself in an area where there's a lot of salt water and it's a whole new game. Or people like myself and my brother Luke, who grew up in the middle of Florida there in Polk County, fishing bass and all those beautiful lakes there. And all of a sudden trying to make the transition, and it's different. There certainly are some similarities, but by and large, it's different. And so we've had that request a lot, and it just so happens this gentleman here, Dilan Ekmark, who we've been following on Instagram, and now has a great YouTube page as well, had sent me a message, and I've been seeing his pictures, and it's like mind-boggling what this dude has accomplished in terms of going out there and catching slams really, really consistently, really, really fast, from someone who had never really caught many saltwater fish or really any at all not that long ago. And I was like, man, this would be a perfect guest to really kind of fill in the gaps on this topic of, fishing in a brand new spot, or maybe even just coming to inshore saltwater fishing for the first time. Or even if you're experienced, I believe you're going to be able to learn a lot from this podcast in terms of the mistakes that almost all of us make along the way, and really kind of those little tweaks, those small little things that make a massive difference when it comes to going out there and catching consistent inshore slams. So I'm talking redfish, speckled trout, snook, tarpon, flounder, etc. Dilan, welcome to the show, brother.
Mr. Joe Simons, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so what's the backstory? Where are you from? Is it Ohio? Is that right there?
Yeah, you got it. I am born and raised in Central Ohio.
And how old are you now?
I am 27 years old.
Okay, so you're still a young buck.
Yeah, I like to think so, at least.
And so when did you move to Florida?
Yeah, actually, I've only been in Florida for about 6 months now.
Holy smokes. Okay, so I thought it was longer than that, only 6 months.
Yep, just we got here towards the end of November.
Okay, so tell me the backstory. You grow up in a fishing family there? What were you guys into?
Oh, absolutely. Just like probably a lot of listeners, I can't remember a time when I didn't fish. My father was a big outdoorsman. That's what we always did together. We fished and hunt, and sadly, he did pass away when I was very young. But that was just really instilled into me, and I am lucky. I have the most supportive mother in the whole world, and she always took me fishing, and just always kind of nurtured that because she could tell that was something I was really into, and my grandfather as well. I spent every spring break, every winter break with my grandfather steelhead fishing, and that's just kind of where it all started for me there.
So fly fishing.
Yeah, fly fishing, spin fishing. I kind of did the opposite as far as transitions go. I started out as all I did was fly fish, and then as I got older, I actually got more into spin fishing. And now that I'm coming back to saltwater, I'm kind of dabbling more in fly fishing again.
Oh, cool, man. So you're young. You're now fishing with mom, grandpa. It sounds like if you started off fly fishing, you knew how to catch steelhead, meaning like were you pretty consistent? Were you pretty considered like pretty good for a young person there, or for any age person?
Yeah, I like to think I was. I think one story that really stands out in my mind, we were fishing in northeastern Ohio at a pretty popular spot. I think I was about 12 years old, and I hooked a giant steelhead. And there were a dozen or so people on the bank, and it jumped, and everybody was just like, whoa, and hooting and hollering. And I was proceeding to get spooled. I could not stop this fish, and I didn't know what to do. So in all of my brilliance as a 12-year-old in the middle of winter, I jumped in the river. And this thing and I went rolling down the rapids. And, of course, my grandfather's having a heart attack thinking that, he's going to have to deal with my mother on this one. And I rolled with it down to a pool and was actually able to fight it and land it. And I have that picture on my nightstand, and every time I look at it, it just kind of makes me smile and remember some of the maybe not smart decisions I made, but good stories as well.
Kind of like a river runs through it, huh?
Yeah, it's obviously I don't even know if that what year that movie came out, but I'd never seen it at that point. But my grandfather always talks about it like river ran through it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. All right, so you got it dialed in. You're a young angler. Things are going well in terms of your fishing game, and all of a sudden you moved to Florida just 6 months ago at 26, 27 years old.
Yeah, I've always been a big fisherman, and here in Central Ohio, I actually had a really good crew of friends I ran around with. We fished all the time, and I mean that's what we all did, and we kind of had our own secret spots dialed in. And then, about 5 years ago, one of the members that we fish with all the time, his name's Kevin Hughes. He moved to South Florida, and he just starts posting all these pictures. And if you guys want to see like the creme de la creme of inshore fishing, you could give him a follow over at his Instagram. It's Small Craft Advisory Fishing. And just after looking at his pictures and stuff, we always still talk. I went and visited him 2 years ago for the first time, and it changed everything for me. He took me out, and just being on the water in a kayak and seeing the tarpon and the dolphins, and I caught my first snook, and it just was like, wow, this is a whole new world. And at the time, I was kind of trying to decide, what path in life I was going to take, and I think everybody at some point has to decide, what they're passionate about and what they kind of want to, make their life about. And for me, it was fishing. And I just thought, this is the move right here. I got to get down here. And, it's moving from Ohio to Florida. A lot goes into that. Unfortunately, I didn't have the ability to just kind of to pack up and go. But, my lovely girlfriend, Ashley, she knew that was my dream. And she has kind of a specialized degree, but it just so happened, about 9 months ago now, she got a offer from a company in Fort Myers. And we just kind of looked at each other and was like, is it time to put your money where your mouth is, and we do this thing. And we just kind of packed up and by ourselves moved all the way across the country. And it's in my opinion probably the best decision that I've ever made. I mean, I'm so lucky to have her, and it's just, I just feel way more fulfilled, and it's given me a whole new adventure and just an outlook on life in general.
All right, so now you're here, you got a girlfriend, you're in Florida, you had an experience with your buddy Kevin there. Obviously, when you go with someone who knows the water really well, it can sometimes make it feel and look easy, just like going with a full-time guide. What happened when you moved here and started doing it on your own?
Yeah, so obviously I moved down here, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to see my friend again because I didn't get to see him very much. So I'd go over to the East Coast, like my first week down here, and fish with him. And he's really, really opened my eyes to what's available. I mean, he helped me get on my first bonefish, first tarpon, these kind of things, like the juveniles, and it was exactly how I remembered it. I was catching all these fish. I was loving life. This is easy. This is way easier than trying to catch a steelhead. This is where I want to be. So fast forward, he gets busy with, what he's doing, and I'm over in Fort Myers, and it's time to go fishing. And I'm like, here we go. We're going to go catch a bunch of fish. I bought a kayak, take my kayak down to the water, go out, and I spend an entire day fishing without even getting a bite.
Mm.
And I go, okay, well, everybody has off days. Maybe this is just one of those days for me. And, it continued to be a pattern to where I might only catch 1 or 2 fish. I'm not talking, fishing for an hour or two. I'm talking, 4, 8, 12 hours even, and just not getting on the fish.
And are you doing live bait or artificial lures?
I'm mostly artificial, but I broke down a couple times and just got some shrimp to catch some mangrove snapper just so I could say I didn't get skunked. And, I just had to stop and go, okay, whatever I'm doing isn't working. And I need to go back to the basics. And, instead of just trying to blindly catch fish, we need to go back to what I know, and that's, coming up with a game plan. So I think that's one of the main things that I've kind of discovered. If you're new to saltwater fishing, or maybe you're having some issues catching fish, or maybe you just want to, know how to find more fish. What I've kind of discovered, I think it can really help people. I've got a whole kind of system I put in place for how I find spots and how I catch fish. And it's allowed me to go from, only catching a couple fish to having several 100+ fish days, mostly on artificial.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and speaking of a game plan, I know you weren't saying it's just for people who are beginning. I think now you probably rely on a game plan more than ever. I mean, I know every pro I fished with and guys like my brother, I mean, they have a game plan. They've spent some time at home, just like we'll probably hear about in a second, coming up with a plan. And usually looking back on my worst days, the days where I go out there and it's just like a couple lady fish and, a puffer fish, like those are the days, and a couple of jacks, like, man, what happened? Those are usually the days when I have zero game plan, when I have done no pre-trip planning whatsoever, and I just kind of go out there and wing it. So it's a good reminder that having a game plan every trip is critical. Even the best of the very best do it every single time, based on weather, based on the wind, obviously based on tides, and you really pick your spots that way. You don't just keep going to the same spots because you caught a snook there last time. It really has to have a more of a science-based calculation, if you will, in terms of a plan, which is what we talk about all the time in the Insider Club, these smart fishing spots. So I hate to interrupt you there, but it's a great reminder. I think so many people, because I know because we did it for years, just try to go out there and wing it, like, I'm catching whatever bites, versus having like a true game plan. So talk about how before you kind of share what this system is. Did it happen overnight? Was it looking at, like, did you do a journal or like a logbook? What was the progression there? And I mean, it's only been 6 months or so. So what happened?
Yeah. So, I think exactly what you said you said as perfectly as you can. Even now that I have this game plan that we use, and that, I have had a lot of input from, Kevin and other people who fish. It's almost like a superstition for a sporting team, like how you do something every time. I do it every single time I fish now. And for me, a big thing was the Salt Strong Nation, just your whole system. I mean, in this day and age, you have the world at your fingertips. If you need to learn how to tie knots, if you need to, learn what baits to use, you're a search away. And I think a lot of it came from some of the videos that you guys do where you talk about dissecting spots. And for me, I saw that and I actually didn't connect with it on a fishing level right away. And I'm sure some of your listeners can attribute to this. I actually immediately triggered to my brain when it came back to hunting. Living in Ohio, I was obviously a big deer hunter. If I wanted to harvest a big mature deer, I didn't just go out and throw a tree stand in a random tree and go, this is where it's going to happen. A lot of work goes into finding out where you want to be and when you want to be there. And I thought, all right, well, I need to start approaching fishing this way, because it's been a very long time since I actually fished somewhere new that I didn't know, and I'm not doing it the right way. That's kind of how it all came about. And just with lots of time spent, figuring it out and figuring out how it works. Now I've got it down pretty well where I can confidently go to bed at night and go, yeah, we're gonna catch fish tomorrow.
So do tell what happened and kind of what are you doing and how much time are you spending on the kind of the pre-trip plan and this system you've built?
Sure. So I think a lot of your success, probably more than half of it, comes from before you even walk out your front door. And I think something that everybody should do if they don't already, you want to download a good wind app and a good tide app for whatever area you're fishing. Even, and this doesn't even apply to everybody with a boat. This is for people who, you can get everything done on foot. If you're wanting to fish a bridge, on the east side and you don't know that there's going to be an east wind and you show up, I mean, you're not going to be fishing because, you're trying to cast into the wind. It's just going to cause you all kinds of problems. So, I mean, especially from my, perspective as a kayaker, wind is everything. A bad wind day means, I'm not going out. So I have to be really careful how I plan it. And then also with the tides, I don't, right off the bat, especially when I'm trying to find new areas, I don't pay much attention to whether it's an incoming or an outgoing tide. I just want movement. I don't want stagnant water. I want to go, it doesn't matter if it's in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon. I want to make sure that I'm there when the water's moving. And I think that's, a major thing that, instead of just trying to make something happen, you're kind of giving yourself a little bit of a leg up that you're going to be somewhere when there's some action going on. And then, the next step in that, I spend a lot of time on Google Earth. When I first started doing this, I pulled up Google Earth and I said, okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at all these canals because canals are nothing. I don't have canals in Ohio. It's all brand new to me. And I thought it was really interesting. So I went through and within about a 45-minute drive from my house, I marked every spillway, every major bridge, any interesting pinch points. I just put a dot on it and I spent a day just driving around and looking at these spots. I took a fishing pole. You're crazy if you're going to water not taking a fishing pole. But it wasn't so much about, catching fish. It was just, what do I see? Am I seeing bait? Am I seeing structure? Am I coming here and it doesn't smell right? Does it smell like, death or something? And then you just kind of wing it. I find what's really good and I'll make a note. This is a good spillway. Or, I find one that's got a lot of bait. I'll mark it and this is, a bait zone. And I do the same thing for any type of pinch points in mangroves, major bridges, major inlets. And that just kind of helps you build a network of spots that you want to go and you want to explore and check out to see, what the fishing is actually going to be like.
So that was probably one of your most valuable days, meaning quite the investment if you spent an entire day just basically driving around looking for spots. And what I love is that's something you can do in a car or truck, meaning you don't have to go out in a boat, and you still don't have a boat to this day, right? Like you're still either kayak or land, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was probably the single biggest day for me fishing wise, like solo in my own new city by myself, because it paid off in dividends for me. So, when you're looking at these new spots, the first thing, if I'm going, all right, it's time to fish, you want to make sure your gear is 100% before you ever get there. And I kind of have a method that when I'm exploring a new area, I have like 3 bait setups I use. And number one, I use a topwater or a subsurface because, as it's a good way to get an aggressive fish to eat. It's a good way to cover some water and see what's active in the area. And the next setup I use is a swim bait. Actually, I love the Slam Shady 2.0s, especially if you're fishing for redfish. They're scented. You want something with some funk to it. That seems to really, for me anyway, be a deciding factor between whether I'm going to get a redfish to eat or not. I don't know if you've noticed that as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much all we use for redfish, snook, and the snook have been killing it this year so far. But yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. And then on the third setup I run, I do one of 2 things. If I'm fishing somewhere that I know the fish are pressured, or it's maybe a flat or a quiet area, I like a small shrimp, just a small shrimp imitation. Not a big honking 5-inch with a quarter-inch jig head, just something small. They're light, they're flickable, they don't make a loud splash when they hit the water, and I think that's a really great way to find if there's not so active fish, because I've gone to these spots sometimes and I've thrown a top water or a swim bait and not really seen a lot of action, and then I'll throw a shrimp on and all of a sudden I might get a couple really nice fish, and I go, oh, okay, well, maybe before I write this spot off, maybe we just need to take a more delicate approach to it.
Yeah, that's why we came up with that Alabama leprechaun, which we'll have to get some in your hand that's coming out, because it's essentially kind of a shrimp imitator, and you can put it on a 1/16 ounce little twist lock hook. It makes hardly any splash, and for that same reason. So I love that you mentioned those three.
Yeah, and that's a ticket. I mean, that is, everybody should be paying attention to that, because it can be a day saver for sure. If you're a hardcore artificial guy, that is major. And then really the only other thing I like to keep with me, if I'm fishing somewhere deeper or faster, I'll still fish, like a Slam Shady jig head, but I'll put on a heavier jig head. Instead of I normally run, 1/8 ounce or a quarter ounce, I'll put it on an ounce and a half.
Wow.
And just roll the bottom, just slow roll it on the bottom. And that's been really productive sometimes, you just run that by just the right fish and you'll get a bite. It's a good way to kind of visualize what the bottom looks like too. Over here in Fort Myers, we don't always have the cleanest water. So a lot of times I can't see what the bottom structure is, but I can feel it. I can run a jig head through there. If I'm feeling sandy bottom, or if I'm feeling rocks, or if I feel a big drop off, you just kind of make a mental note of, okay, that's structure. There's some change there that at some point is probably going to hold fish. And then it, just comes into play of being there on and out. I like to, before I write a spot off being bad, I like to fish it on an incoming and an outgoing, because they change. And sometimes a spot's good on incoming and sometimes it's not, or vice versa. And then, you're just building this map, building this mental picture of where the fish are and what they're doing in that situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and real quick, I want to go back to this day that you spent, which couldn't have been that long ago. So you spent a full day looking at all of these, spots. You mentioned, canals and pinch points and bridges, spillways, anything that just kind of looked like unique structure that you could find on Google Maps. What did you discover? Meaning, did you discover like half of the spots just there was nothing going on? Or did all of them look good and promising? How did you narrow it down from there?
Yeah, so actually I was really surprised, and it immediately kind of gave me some confidence. The first spillway I actually went to, there was water running over it, and there were tarpon there. And at this point, other than on the East Coast, I'd never even seen a tarpon. So my heart just kind of leapt out of my skin and was like, oh my gosh, I found a spot on Google Earth. I went there, and there's tarpon. And, I just was like, okay, this is going to work. And I looked around, and then I went to a couple other places that were not as productive, and it was kind of disappointing. But then, I think it averaged out to about 50% of them. I had marked down that I need to go back and fish. And some of them were just too shallow, or there wasn't, some of the bridges, there wasn't access to. I know that's something as anglers, we kind of struggle with, finding places to legally be sometimes. And there were a couple places that looked great, but, you're not supposed to fish there. So I just kind of, had to write those off too.
Got it. That's cool. That's helpful. All right. So you got your now your spots, your brand new area. You have a kayak at this point?
Yes. Yeah. I got a kayak as soon as I came down here. Yep.
Okay. And then what?
Yeah. So I started fishing these spots, and I started having success. And I went, okay, so now you kind of start building this, not necessarily a map, but you start understanding that these kind of places are holding fish, whether it be a big point or a bridge and an undercurrent. So now I can take what I learned here and I can apply it other places. And you start just continuing to find new places to fish and having success. And one thing that I'm a big proponent of is, I obviously now have spots that I know I can go and catch fish. But if I'm catching fish, I like to catch my fill, so to speak, and then go and explore, because that's half the fun to me. And the more you explore, and the more you put what you've learned in other places into new spots you're looking to fish, you're just going to continuously build a network of spots. And then I think, for those of us who are busy and can't get out every day, you may only have a day or two a week to fish, and you just want to catch fish. If you've got one spot in mind that, yeah, we're going to go there and it's going to be great, and you show up and, there's a boat there, there's 4 other guys fishing there, and you don't have a backup plan or, plan A, B, C, and D, your day is over before it even started.
Yep.
So just being able to have that background of, okay, I've got all these spots, in this area, I know of 3 different spots. So if we go somewhere and maybe it's just not good that day, or someone's there, okay, no worries, we got another one. And eventually you're going to find fish. And I think that's what, a lot of your really successful guides out there, I think they can all kind of agree to that, it's a competitive industry, and that's what you gotta do to get it done. And, the bottom line is we're all just trying to catch some fish.
Do you have any type of structure that you found personally? And I'm not talking necessarily you got to go catch a trophy fish, but I think most of our listeners, and really including me, especially when I'm with my family, I just want to get tight lines. Have you found that it is bridges, or is it mangroves? Is it docks? Is it just grass flats? Is there a certain type of structure that you're just confident, like, all right, we are gonna catch some fish?
Sure, and there definitely is. I will say that I'm definitely still new to the game, and I have a ton to learn, and I really haven't figured out the grass flats game yet. That's something I'm really working on now. But for me, in that situation, I really like docks in an area of high current, or like a jetty point. So if you're looking at a map in a neighborhood, or whatever it's going to be, it's going to have docks. Look towards the end. Follow that water, see where it's going out to the river or the ocean, and those points, they're going to hold fish. If there's water moving, at the front of that and at the back of that, depending on the tide, those are spots that you really want to key in on. Bridges as well. If you're looking for bridges, towards an inlet, they're going to have fish. That's
yes.
You're going to have all kinds of species, and that if you've got an afternoon with the family and you just want to catch some fish, that's somewhere I would really target immediately. That's you're going to find success very quickly there on a new number of different baits, depending on how you want to fish.
And I'll throw a tip out there just from what we've discovered is you're 100% right. If you can find a bridge that's near an inlet or pass and there's moving water, there are guaranteed to be a ton of fish there. The next thing is making sure that you have the right bait and the right weight, that you're getting in the right depth of the water column. But what we found over and over again is that everyone seems to kind of, gravitate towards the bigger bridges, right? Like here in St. Pete, Tampa, you got the Skyway, and it's just loaded on the weekend. Everyone's on every piling. And not to say you shouldn't be, but what we found is that we'll go find the smallest little bridges, the ones that are not as close, because you're not going to have those massive bridges, the small bridges next to these massive openings and passes and inlets. But some of these little small bridges that are still really, really close, and they're not going to have half as much pressure, and they still hold a ton of fish, and they're usually shallower, so it's not as tough to catch some of these fish. And we've absolutely killed it on some of these just smaller little bridges that most people are going past to try to get to some of the larger, taller bridges, and these small ones hold a ton of fish.
Couldn't agree more. One of my absolute favorite spots since I've moved down here is actually a walking bridge. That's how small it is.
There you go. Yep.
And I know if I'm there before sunrise, I'm going to have a shot at an overslot snook. Like it will happen. Whether I make it happen or not, it's going to try and eat. So. But on another note, for someone who's maybe new or, particularly a plastics fisherman, artificials, learn to throw a cast net. That's something that I know a lot of people, you probably get a ton of questions on it, and a lot of people struggle. I use your video and learn how to throw a cast net.
That's how you found Salt Strong, right? From the how to throw a cast net video?
Exactly. That was, when I first started looking to move down here, I knew I had to figure out how to get bait. And that was the first thing I looked up, and that kind of started the whole thing with me looking through all your videos and getting on the podcast and listening to everything was that actual cast net video.
So do you throw the cast net from the kayak, or are you going off, beaches or bridges and stuff and getting it first, or what?
Yeah, so I do throw from my kayak, but I don't rely on it necessarily. I just, when you throw a cast net, it looks like a parachute, but really it can be a parachute for your fishing day. It can stop it from crashing and burning if it's just been a really slow day. And I think a big part of looking at all these new areas and kind of building that Google Maps database, I have canals that I know consistently hold bait. I know your buddy, Jeff Maggio, Lunker Dog, says, but can you get a dozen? And just that, just having that peace of mind that I know if I need to, I can get a dozen, goes a long way. And I like to keep it with me just in case the opportunity presents itself, but it can really sometimes be the difference. If the fish are really keyed in on something and you don't have it, or what recently happened to me, I ran through like 50 soft plastics and was just out. I didn't have anything else. So I was like, all right, well, now I got to go find some filters and start this process all over again. So that's another, another really key thing that I think is if you're trying to build a toolbox for saltwater fishing, you need to know how to throw a cast net, especially if you're trying to make friends.
Yeah.
If you're trying to make friends and get on somebody's boat, if you can throw pancakes, you're going to get invites. If someone invites you out and you can show up with bait already, or you can show up ready to catch bait, that goes a long way.
That's so true. That's funny. And it sounds like if you're going through 50 soft plastics in a day, that's a lot of strikes. It's a lot of fish being caught.
It is, yeah. And another thing too, if you're going to start saltwater fishing, especially down in Florida, you need to know how to pitch under docks and mangroves, or you're going to struggle. You got to really sometimes get up in there. And one thing that really worked for me is I actually, when we moved here, I took one of our moving boxes that was a small rectangle, and I just laid it on its side in a yard. Started back at 20 feet, just trying to pitch my lure into there with, maybe only hitting the ground once or not hitting the ground at all. And then just kind of start gradually backing up so you can really skip it in there. And then when you get out there and you're fishing and you're trying to get to the back of that dock, you're not throwing over it, you're not getting hung up, and you're just going to be way more confident in getting your bait where the fish are. Because sometimes they hold so tight on the inside of those docks that you can get your bait under the dock and not in front of the fish and say, well, there's nothing under there. But if you would have just made it back in there another foot, you were going to get tight on that fish.
I love it, man. That has been a common trend from so many of the pros. So many of the guides have said the biggest mistake they see on their boat is just bad casting. They know how to rig it. They know how to retrieve. They know how to set the hook. They know how to fight a fish. It's that casting can make or break you. And I love the fact you threw out, taking a little triangle, anything. I mean, it could be start off with a hula hoop if you need to and put it far away. Just something that you can do it in your backyard. You can go to right now you can go to a ton of different parking lots with this whole virus thing when places close down and just start casting in a college campus or something, high school parking lots. I love that you brought that up. Casting
anywhere.
is critical.
You can really hone your skills. Like you said, anywhere. You don't have to be near the water. I know, a couple of guides that I've met, they say the same thing about the casting. And my thought process on that is, I think hiring a guide, if you're coming down here to visit or if you're trying to learn the area, is great. I think you should. But you're going to get so much more out of your time on the water if you're not fighting the technical aspects when you're there. I mean, I know a couple guides where if you get on their boat and, they don't have to teach you how to cast or rig your stuff and you're ready to roll, I mean, it just motivates them. Like, all right, this guy wants to fish. Like,
yep.
Let's get out there and let's get tight on some fish. I think that goes a long way, and you'll just be so much less stressed if you're not digging your jig heads out of dock pilings all day.
Yes. All right. I want to go back. You mentioned something about having, I think you said like a 200 fish day, and you're only basically been doing this really for 6 months or so. Talk about that day, like what, without not sharing your real spots, but where were you fishing? How, I think so many people, I see the comments all the time in both our public Facebook group and even in our insider club, and we have some new people and they're just trying to catch their first snook or first redfish, or maybe it's their first inshore slam where they've caught all three species, but never in the same day. It seems just unbelievable. Like when I've told someone we had days like that before them, it's almost like they don't believe it. So can you describe, and it doesn't have to be 200, whatever the number is, 100, 150, describe like just one of those amazing days and the lessons learned behind that as well.
Yeah, I definitely can. It was just one of those days where, I went out with my buddy Kevin, and I think it was one other person, and it was in the wintertime down here, so your fish either move offshore or they move further inshore. And one of the benefits of having a kayak is that, or especially if you're a wade fisherman, you can kind of get places where boats can't go. So we had just found these mangrove channels coming out of the bay that were skinny. I mean, we're in knee-deep water in the kayaks, and the water was pouring out of these channels. It's just warm, nutrient-rich water, and these fish are just stacked in these channels. And I mean, you just see the shadows almost like bait fish, but they're just smaller snook and smaller reds and tarpon. And it was just a matter of knowing those fish were looking for warm water and trying to find low-pressured fish. And once we got on, we just threw swim baits on them all day long. You'd see fish move out and new fish move in. It reminded me a lot of actually being back home, migrating steelhead. They just kind of come in waves, and then that lasted for the entire outgoing tide. And then once it switched to incoming, they were on to bigger and better things.
Wow! So you did that all really in kind of one spot then?
Yeah, it was probably a total of 20 little finger mangrove channels.
Got it.
Over a span of probably a quarter mile, but it was all coming from the same place, and it just the same exact structure duplicated over and over and over again. And every single one of them had fish.
That's awesome. So
and we just kind of
go for it. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that's kind of one of those things where we'd catch a bunch of fish at one, and then instead of just sitting there all day, we go, okay, let's move to the next one and see if it's the same. And it was, and we just kept going until we ran out of tide or ran out of fish.
So that was winter. You haven't even really been here a full year yet. What are you finding in the summer? I know you're probably not having the same kind of luck in that same type of place in the backcountry. Have you had any of those just phenomenal days in the summertime, and any kind of lessons learned there?
Yeah, obviously this is my first spring down here, and I've been following the fish out. It seems to me that, especially on the West Coast, the fish are starting to move out to the beach. I know that the snook are spawning in the summer, and I know Boca Grande Pass, which is north of me, gets the massive tarpon migration. And I've been fishing more towards the inlets, and more on the ocean side, or the Gulf side, so to speak, just trying to get out of the backwaters and into the open waters. And it's been really interesting to actually firsthand see. At this point, I had never seen a tarpon over 100, 120 pounds, and now you see the big daisy chaining schools, and it just makes your heart jump out of your chest and your hands shake. And it's just like the spring is here, life is here, everything's moving up and down the coast, and you kind of just want to get out there and intercept that. And the same rules apply. It might not be that I'm spending my time on the bridges and the docks at this point, but you're still looking for if you pull up Google Earth, you can see the channels in the water just from the color difference around the mangroves and stuff, and they're just the fish highways basically, and just trying to put yourself where the fish are wanting to go.
And you mentioned not so much the docks, or do you still, because we had, even just yesterday, we were killing it on, you had mentioned, finding docks or the canals and the points closer to some of these passes. Are you fishing areas like that still here, spring? And I said summer earlier just because it feels like it, whether it's like 90 degrees out right now.
Absolutely. That's still exactly where I'm targeting
okay,
fish.
Cool.
It's just, I noticed, more in the winter time, I could go way up, maybe more inshore on the docks.
Got
now,
it.
I am focusing the majority of my time at those inlets, or at those really high traffic, high water flow zones. More towards where they dump out into the Gulf or the ocean.
Yep, got it.
And from what I've been kind of seeing, I fully expect that those zones are gonna hold fish all year.
Well, that's awesome. So what else? Any other piece of this kind of system?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is mindset, and that for me was a big one, just because it had been so long since I had genuinely been frustrated by fishing or anything really. And it's a learning process. It's a learning process, and you got to learn to love every step. I stopped looking at days where I wasn't catching a lot of fish as failures, and more along the lines of, okay, why weren't there fish here today? What were the conditions like? What was I throwing? Where was I? Just kind of trying to figure it out. And for me, one thing I remember, one day I had a bad day and I caught a couple fish, and I was talking to my buddy Kevin. I was like, yeah, I caught a couple random snook in random places, and he was like, no, it's never random. There's a reason it was there. And that's when I was like, okay, now I need to change my mindset as to why those fish are there. And a big part of that for me was, as far as not getting frustrated, moving down here, I started following a lot of West Coast anglers on Instagram and things like that. And, I'd go out and have a rough day, and I'd get on my Instagram and see somebody posted a giant snook or a big redfish. It's almost like, putting salt in the wound. You went out there and busted your butt and didn't do well, and here someone else is kicking butt. But you got to remember that it's a process, and you're going to get there eventually, and to just kind of, not dwell on that too much. And before you know it, you'll be posting pictures like that yourself, and you'll have a little more courage and just a little more confidence in what you're doing. And I think that's, just having confidence in what your plan is and what you're trying to accomplish goes a long way.
I love it. And any other major mistakes or things that you wish someone had told you, 6-7 months ago?
Yeah, one of the big ones for me, if you're fishing current, I started fishing current, whether from bridges or from a kayak or a boat, and I would throw down current and reel up, because in my mind it was giving my lure a better action. I was making that paddle tail flutter like crazy. My hard bait's running good. My top water's, doing whatever. But in reality, it's not natural to the fish. The fish are looking up current. They're hiding behind things, looking up and looking slightly to the side. They're not looking for things to come over their head. So even if it means that your lure might not have the best action rolling back down with the current, that's what looks natural to the fish. And that's what he's looking for. So you really need to focus throwing more up current than you do cross or down. And that for me, I don't know why I thought that, but for the longest time I was kind of focusing more on that, and it wasn't working for me. And you start realizing that the more I throw up current, the more I'm getting fish. And it sounds so simple to me now, but I think these things aren't common for someone who's never had to deal with current, or maybe never tides or fished a big river. If you're a bass guy that you fish lots of lakes and ponds, I mean, this might not be something that you ever really had to contend with. And I think, just knowing that kind of stuff up front would help people a lot, especially if you're fishing from a bridge. You want to throw, up into the current, let it roll back down, versus throwing on the other side of the bridge and trying to reel it up.
Love it. Yeah, that's something that pretty much everyone who came from freshwater to salt deals with. I think it is because in our minds, it is going to be more of a natural retrieve, and you can almost kind of feel the tension, as you're essentially fighting against the current. Whereas the other way, especially the current's moving, you might not even feel the lure. But yet that's the natural way. That's how shrimp and crustaceans and all kinds of bait are flowing through there so fast. And that's how you're going to get really good reaction strikes too. And it's coming through nice and fast. I mean, these, especially those snook, man, if you watch them, how they feed onto those bridges, I mean, they pop those shrimp and some of those baits so fast. I mean, they're just sitting there waiting for it. It's getting me pumped up. I want to go fishing right now.
I know we keep talking about all these fish eating, and now I'm just ready to get out there and go catch some fish.
So what else? Any other big mistakes or kind of final tips that you think would be helpful?
Be safe. I mean, that's for me, especially if you're kayaking. One of my biggest mistakes was I didn't give Tampa Bay the respect it deserves. I went out there one day in my kayak and thought I was going to fight some waves and fight the current, and I ended up having to beach my kayak on the other side of the bay. I floated so far. I was very close to calling the Coast Guard. I had to beach my kayak, call an Uber back to my truck. It was a mess.
Wow.
And that was one of those things for me that, you just really got to respect the water and wear a life jacket and understand how current works, and don't fight the tides, don't fight the currents. If, I look at what I want to do one day, and I'll make sure that if I want to go out somewhere, I'm going out on an outgoing tide, and then I'm going to fish till it changes. I'm going to come back in with the tide, and just, it's a much safer option than just saying I'm going to make it work no matter what. I think that's a big thing that, especially if you're wade fishing, and just being really aware of your surroundings, especially if you're new to the saltwater. I mean, there's the things that you probably didn't have to deal with before, so you need to make sure you respect it.
Well, that's awesome, brother. Well, Dilan, this has been good. I know this is going to be really helpful for so many people, not just beginners, but you threw down a lot of great information. And I think, too, just it should give people some confidence, the fact that it can be done in a really short amount of time. And we preach that over and over again in our Insider Club. I love a lot of the things that you said. I mean, the importance of looking at wind, right? So many people just look at the tide, and the wind in some cases can trump what the actual tide is doing. Obviously, your point, you want to have current, but man, looking at the wind and looking at all the variables is so critical. And then really just studying spots. You can do so much from the comfort of your home, and of course, all of our Insider members, get our entire master course. We have an online mastery class on using all of these different these free satellite maps. And some are better than others in certain areas. Some are better than others in certain situations. And we break all that down. And you complete that course, and you will know more than 99% of most people do when it comes to finding honey holes using online maps. So I'd encourage all you guys to join us in the club, obviously. And spend time. I mean, I love this story, Dilan, just because you took essentially one day off. We're not talking like, hey, take a year of life and study fish and go scuba diving with them. You basically took one, maybe 2 days and really just studied spots. You got online and you got in your vehicle and actually went to go look at areas around you, started narrowing down which ones are good, and then just started fishing them. And here you are 6 months later, and super consistent, catching inshore slams like crazy. I mean, doing all the things that some anglers are trying to accomplish, after years of fishing. So really proud of you, man. That's really awesome. And
thank you.
Yeah, tell everyone where can they go follow you. I know you got a YouTube channel, and obviously on Instagram, you're putting some awesome pics too.
Yeah, by all means, my Instagram, it's Dilan_fishing, and that's DILAN. Please go give me a follow. If you guys found value in this and maybe you go out and have some success, send me a message, send me some pictures. I'd love to see what's going on, and say, hey, this really worked for me, thanks. And if you want to see some of the crazy adventures I'm getting into, you can go over to my Instagram channel, and it's my YouTube channel, and it's Chillin' with Dilan. That's CHILLIN, and then just with my name, Dilan, DILAN.
Cool. So that's DILAN for you guys, and Dilan.
Yes.
_fishing and Chillin' with Dilan. And we'll put links in the show notes. So if you are in your car working out, like I know a lot of you are, we will have all of this and links. We'll put some of the pictures of Dilan and some of the latest catches, and we'll embed a couple of his YouTube videos from his YouTube channel on the blog page, which you can always find it at saltstrong.com/podcast. We'll have that one up there at the top. So saltstrong.com/podcast. Although otherwise, guys, go out there and catch some fish. And once again, join us in the club if you haven't already. For you current members, we're 13,700 strong. We appreciate you so much. You insiders are amazing. I hope you're taking advantage of all these new tackle deals. We've We've added about 7,000 products to our shop page now, including every rod, reel, line, lure, cast nets, sunglasses, and our Insider members, of course, get 20% off. So come join us over there. Thank you for all the love, all the support. Dylan, I'm looking forward to chatting again here soon and kind of seeing your progression as you continue to keep killing it, man. It's so cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, to see someone who's really, found someone like us, like Saltstrong, who loves teaching, and we love hearing stories like that of someone who's been watching us and been using our tools and then just going out and putting it to action. Right? There's a lot you can learn online, and then once you take it out there and do it and build that confidence up. I love the fact you mentioned the mindset piece of it. That's that's great stuff, dude.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really can't thank you guys enough for everything you provided for us to be able to learn and just kind of be better at what we love doing.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you on the next episode. Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.